is okay. We are live on everywhere, I think. Great. So Gordon has a very inspiring story. He started from Hong Kong, and after studying law in Hong Kong, he actually got a job in the UK, in London, at Baker and McKenzie, which he's yet to join. After that, Gordon essentially also wrote the New York bar exam, although he had never gone to US before that. He decided to write the New York bar exam, and he cleared the bar exam. I think he went to New York for the first time when he was writing the bar exam. So he prepared for it sitting in Hong Kong, essentially, and cleared the New York bar exam. And now he is qualified to practice in New York. And also he's going to actually be working in London. And this is a very interesting story. And he has gone through his fair share of struggles, about which he has shared also, that, you know, the kind of challenges he went through while trying to get a job in a UK law firm, and then you know, even the challenge of trying to crack the New York bar exam, which is a pretty difficult exam, and doing all of this from Hong Kong, right? So let's welcome him and let's hear from him, and I'm sure a lot of us can learn many insights from Gordon. So awesome. So Gordon, welcome to LawSikho webinar, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for making time for us. Please.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's definitely my pleasure to be here, and you guys are a big organization and platform back to your country as well, and also in the world as well, because you guys organizing a lot of webinars. So I'm really happy to actually talk about my personal journey in relation to how to take my career international. I think maybe like before I start, you already introduced a lot about me. Maybe I just add a little bit more something regarding my journey. Is I did my 4-year LLB degree in Hong Kong, and after I graduated, I basically took a chance and came to the UK and did my Masters of Corporate Law at University of Cambridge, and it was an amazing experience for me. So basically, after that a year experience, I decided that UK is kind of the place I want to qualify as a lawyer, or at least to have my early part of my legal journey. So basically, that's the reason why I tried to apply for training contract after I graduate, or almost towards the end of my graduation there. So I basically used around, I would say, a year before actually getting my training contract with Baker McKenzie. And it was not an easy journey, because compared to other students in the UK, you can see that people, especially first-year students, already start going to law firm events, start joining competitions, or start actually familiarize themselves with different law firms in the UK. So I actually started pretty slow compared to other domestic law students. So it was difficult in this sense. And also another problem probably also applies to some of your audience who are Indians or outside of the EU, like the visa issue. Because normally when you graduate from your degree, you have maybe 3 to 5 months to stay in the UK to actually look for a job, or to decide to either go back home or to stay here. So that was a problem for me, because my visa probably was gonna expire 4 months after I graduated. So within this period of time, actually, I didn't get my training contract yet, because I was still familiarized myself with the whole recruitment process, and I attended several interviews. But because they have so many different kinds of interview techniques that I had to master at that time, so that's why it was difficult for you to learn from scratch. And I felt for my first few times as well. But that was a great experience for me to kind of reflect upon the way I attended interviews and things. So later on, after I graduated, and I felt the first stage of my application, in terms of the first cycle of my application, I actually went to Italy for an internship. Well, that was actually a bit of weird decision for me, because I just felt I didn't want to go back home at the time because I felt like it would be more like because like if I went back home at the time, it's more likely I would just find a job maybe back home and then settle there. I wouldn't maybe have the courage or like the motivation to keep applying for a job in another country when I'm already in my home country where I have all my friends and family and also a lot of things that I'm very comfortable with. So I would rather like make a decision to actually go to somewhere I didn't know that much, but it's a way for me to gain that extra work experience that helped me stand out in my future applications. So that was basically my mindset. So I definitely, like one of the lessons I learned from here is that I definitely encourage most of you guys to try to pursue some like international internships or opportunities. Although like, no, it is not like, not everyone could potentially afford it or find that job, but I do think that it will help you open more doors in the future, or to make your CV more international, or to make you a more attractive candidate to law firms in leading jurisdiction because of your diverse background or your diverse experience. And so I went to this like intergovernmental organizations in Italy, in Rome, and I worked there for 2-3 months, working on a commercial treatise on asset finance, basically. So I think that also kind of helped me with my CV in terms of my future application, because I mentioned about my experience learning about asset finance at an international level, and like shadowing a international lawyer working in this area. And also I learned a lot about diplomatic skills as well, because they need to negotiate with other countries on this particular treaty. So that was an amazing experience for me as well. And I met a lot of amazing people from all parts of the world. So I just feel like it was a really great choice for me. I would say right now when I think about it. And afterwards, I basically decided to also take the New York bar exam, because when I didn't get my job and when I was in Italy, I felt like I had this urge to improve my CV massively in many ways. So apart from the international internship I acquired, I also wanted to get more qualification and also internationalize my whole CV and my qualification. So I found out that the New York bar exam is an option, because usually if you're from a common law country and if you have like, say 2 or 3 years, probably 3 to 4 years, 3 to 4 years of undergraduate law degree in a common law country, you will usually be automatically qualified to sit for the New York bar exam specifically. Although the final say is on the New York authority, you need to submit your transcript, your undergraduate degree to let them know whether you're eligible. But for me, I realized this path, and I also heard of other people who took that bar exam before. So I felt like this may be an opportunity, especially I always want an international career. And I feel like this is the perfect timing, because I don't actually have a very stable job that I need to commit on a long-term basis. So this is the perfect timing for me to self-study for maybe full-time even, or even on a more flexible schedule. So I did that. I actually inherited a set of notes from a friend of mine. He did the New York bar exams before. So I basically didn't really incur that much cost in terms of the course materials, because it could be expensive, as some of you guys may know. And that definitely helped me a lot in terms of my financial situation. So I basically used those material and I self-studied for probably 4 months, I would say, full time. And in between, I also still apply for training contracts. I just want to try to maximize my chances in both country. The lucky thing was that I remember before I took the New York bar, probably 2 months before I actually took the New York bar, I flew to London, from Hong Kong to London, to attend a final interview with Baker McKenzie. And I was lucky enough to actually secure that offer afterwards. So then it came to the decision that whether I should just continue studying for the bar, because I already got my training contract. It wasn't necessary for me to actually do the bar exam anyway. But I just think about the fact that I always want an international career anyway, and I already enrolled in the bar exam. I studied for already a month and a half at that time. And also my firm is a US law firm. So it actually makes sense for me to just keep studying. So basically my plan was just to keep studying for the bar exam while I was happy enough to get the offer. So during that period, I basically came back to London and prepared for my bar exam. And I think the bar exam, it was an interesting thing for you guys as well. Some of you guys may also want to take it at some point, because you don't actually need to memorize any cases at all. Like, unlike some common law degrees, I'm not sure about India because I never studied there, but like maybe in Hong Kong or in England, you need to memorize lots of cases, and it was kind of problematic, like sometimes, because like it was difficult, to actually name all those cases in an exam. But for the bar exam, you don't need that. So that was a blessing, I would say, like for some of you who hate memorizing cases, but you need to know the law pretty clearly, and because they have millions of ways to test your concept, and they are going to test you multiple concepts in the question as well. So I do think that like the New York bar exam is pretty much a very good opportunity for some of you if you want to take your career international. And at the end, so that's why I kind of passed the bar exam. And yeah, I actually right now I'm not qualified like technically yet, because I'm waiting for them to have the ceremony to swear in, because like right now with the situation, I couldn't really physically go to New York as well. They probably would do it online, so that's also an issue. Yeah, basically this is like a summary of my journey so far, and how I like kind of take like the checkpoint of every part of my legal career now.
Wonderful. So Gordon, when you think about this, that you have done so much, like there has been a clear international focus. Now, of course, even Hong Kong is a great place to work in. Why was going international so important to you personally? Is it because you wanted a different kind of experience, or was it something?
Yeah, because I think I personally think that nowadays, maybe because years ago, it was kind of impossible or difficult for people to actually pursue an international career. And I think law is such a good subject, I would say, or like a domain for people. When you consider maybe you study other subjects, you work in other industry, unless you're a pilot, to say. Otherwise, it's almost impossible for you to travel all over the world, or to actually go to another country, or like to transfer your career to another places. But for law, it's possible nowadays. The fact that you can cross-qualify in so many different jurisdictions. You could be like trial qualified in 3 jurisdictions. You can work in so many countries, working for big global law firms, have offices all around the world. All of this just make it possible, and make it also desirable for people who always enjoy an international career. Because I need to say that it's not for everyone. Some people, they love working in their jurisdiction. They love handling things more domestic, maybe employment law in their place, family law, private law. But for me, I always know that I enjoy the diverse atmosphere, like working with different kinds of people coming from different backgrounds is interesting for me. And also the fact that I love working on like maybe commercial or transaction that are of like multi-jurisdictional nature, that excites me more. So that's why I think all these things just push me forward to actually pursue an international career. So I think more important thing is to realize what kind of person you are. Are you the kind of person who loves that international journey, or you're the kind of person who will be satisfied with like maybe working in your home jurisdiction, home country? And I think there's no right or wrong, or there's no, like which one is better, because which one is better depends on what you think. So just need to pick a journey that suits you.
So when you decided that you want to work in, like you first started with doing international internships, right? So if somebody wants to get an international internship, how do you research it? How do you decide? How do you apply?
You mean like what kind of steps they should take in terms of taking?
Yeah, what are the options, and what kind of
to be very honest, I do think that like if you want to take your career international, several jurisdictions, like some of the more leading jurisdictions, maybe UK, US, even in Asia, maybe Hong Kong even, I do think that like Singapore, many places, even Middle East, Dubai, like those places, they have a more like well-developed, or like I would say like more international vibe, or the kind of transaction they have been dealing with are more like global or like more multi-jurisdictional. I think that's a good starting point. And I do think that it will be difficult if you start in your own country where maybe there are not too many international law firms, because I understand that I came across so many people, maybe from civil law jurisdiction, maybe even from India. They actually don't have that many law firms, international global law firms back home. And that would be difficult. So I think it makes more sense to firstly do a master's degree in a different country. This is the first option, because when you do a master's degree, you have the ability to attend the events organized by law firms physically, and you can interact with the people there. And this is one of the most important things for applying for firms in London, because law firms care about whether you actually know them, whether you are genuinely interested in them. If you're someone randomly from another country applying to it for a job there, you never experience the firm, you never experience the interaction with the people there, you can't convince them that you actually want to work for them. So I think doing a master's degree is helpful in that sense, because you can actually be in that country and interact with the people there. I think that's the important thing. But alternatively, it is also not uncommon to see some people with substantial work experience and in their own country. They could potentially make a jump in their career in terms of moving to another country to work for, a bigger law firms. But I think that also is subject to several limitations or things. Firstly, like the visa issue, it really depends on whether you can convince like the employer that you are such a good candidate that they're willing to sponsor you, to work for them. And second of all, what kind of area of law you have been working in. For example, if you work in your home jurisdiction, the area you have been working on are not necessarily like international deals or commercial deals, then it's more difficult for you to make that jump to work on an area that you are not familiar with, even though you are an attorney with or lawyer with extensive work experiences. So I think you need to pick an area that also really suits you in terms of whether it is a more like international practice area or an area that is more attractive in a leading jurisdiction, maybe like UK or US. And thirdly, I think
maybe something like international commercial arbitration or immigration, these things could be good, right? Or maybe perhaps aviation law, like things which are naturally international trade law, like areas which are international in nature. You think that makes sense?
Definitely. And I do need to mention that like if like those areas, for example, international trade, international law, even international law, you don't necessarily need to work for global law firms as well, because there are intergovernmental organizations. Even the organization I previously worked in Italy, it was a global international organization. And there were lawyers from Australia or maybe from other countries working for that organization. They were practicing lawyers for maybe a few years back home. So you can even make that jump to other intergovernmental organizations. So don't just limit your vision to, I would say, global law firms or international law firms, because there are other organizations or even companies, international companies recruiting foreign lawyers. So that's why sometimes I feel like the fact that you qualify in maybe more leading jurisdiction like New York, which you don't even need to study there, will be helpful in that sense, because you could potentially make that jump because you're a lawyer in a leading jurisdiction. You can potentially work for other international companies in other countries as well, because they need to handle a lot of like New York law stuff as well in that sense. And finally, like a point I want to make is networking is really important as well. Like that also kind of relates back to the first point, that you can actually attend events or to talk to the people at different organizations or firms, because sometimes like whether you are proactive enough to gather more information from people, that really affects your chances of success. Because in the past, I definitely reached out to so many people on LinkedIn, and I do think that you need to have a method of doing that. You couldn't just like blindly send messages to everyone. It's just like your application. You need to tailor that message to the people you're sending to. Because I obviously sometimes I got messages. I pretty much know that some people, they just message them like to send this message to everyone, like just to get some help. Firstly, I think sometimes it might not be too respectful to do that, because you just make the like reader feels like you just send it randomly, you didn't target your audience, or you didn't even know me that well, and you send a message asking me for help, then I think you need to be respectful and actually read their background and mention that why you come across their profile and why you want to ask them for help. I think it is similar to law firm application in the sense that you need to let them know you're really interested in it, or like you respect the firm, or you actually have an understanding of that. So I think that's an important thing, like networking and actually taking a more proactive approach.
Got it. So, I just want to suggest a few alternative things that we have helped our students to get international opportunities in Dubai, Canada, especially UK. So I think this thing really works well. First of all, now I think there is a lot of change in the way people think, because everybody is now getting used to working online and Zoom meetings and stuff like that. So right now there's a great opportunity for those who want to work with international lawyers to build relationships and even do things like research assistantship. You can help them to write articles, write books. You can collaborate on projects like, okay, let's compare the laws. Let's say, how does venture capital work in UK and in India? Let's see fintech companies in UK versus fintech companies in India. What are the challenges they comparative study? And these things can be very interesting, and people would be happy to work on such things. If you reach out, especially there can be exciting things. Similarly, you can tell them that, okay, I can organize a webinar for you where I'll get Indians to attend, and it could be like, if they have an interest in business from India, and there is increasing trade between India and other countries. So you have India-UK trade, India-Canada, India-US, and there is a lot of work happening, right? So you can collaborate with people abroad now to do interesting things. And I think that can be a very interesting starting point, because once you have those interactions, then if you tell them that, do you think there's anything I can do to get an internship, or get even an online internship is fine, or I can somehow get a like a reference to do something, to do everything. Like, it just makes so much sense when you have already collaborated with people from that country. And it is easier now because you can sit where you are right now and start doing these things. I'm sure, Gordon, when you were looking for jobs in the UK or Italy, or maybe it was not as easy, but I think this pandemic, post-COVID, things are quite different. Even someone was saying that how venture capitalists are now ready to invest in a more wide variety of people, even if they're not close to them. And I think it's the same thing. Like, getting international jobs have become a lot easier now. On one hand, it is very difficult to travel. Yes. So you might be able to only travel next year. But this year, I think it is a great time to do online collaborations with people. You can jointly write articles with them. You can help them to do their research. You can manage their social media pages even, right? Like, people need help with their online branding and their social media presence and so many other things. Like, you can help them to make a podcast. Maybe you can make a podcast and invite them to come and be a part of it. So whole lot of things are possible. And more you do these things, more you'll have very strong connections with people, and more there will be opportunities to build global connections and eventually a global career. So does that make sense, Gordon? Do you think this kind of rings true? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with everything you said. I honestly think that, like, the current situation with the virus and pandemic, it is bad, but it is also good in some senses, in terms of we kind of renovate the way we do things, like businesses, the recruitment process, the kind of events they are organizing. They usually take it online now, and there's so many virtual internships. The search in virtual events, virtual internships is actually crazy. You can see, like, on LinkedIn, everyday people just organizing webinars. Even law firms are pretty much into the whole virtual assessment centers, interviews. So I think that definitely helps. Like, although it sounds weird if I say that, like, the pandemic helps us in this way in terms of actually getting, like, things digital. Like, we can actually get opportunities all around the world. And I think so right now, if like your financial situation allows you, if you have laptop, if you have resources, you have internet, I think you definitely have means to actually maximize your chances to have a more international career. I definitely agree that right now is a really, like, it's bad, but also a good time in terms of actually putting yourself out there and seek opportunities at a global level.
Understood. So if I have to like do some internships right now, and do you think it is possible to get, like, what could be some of the opportunities? Let's say somebody in India is a law student and wants to try out some online internships with, of course, there are these virtual internships which are not real internships, but like like an experience of the firm. But beyond that, what are the options that they can opt for?
I think under the current situation, one thing, as you said, the virtual internship, I think even though it doesn't sound like a legit internship, but the thing is, if you participate in that particular internship, say, because like Bright Network, for example, in the UK, they organize this virtual internships for students even all over the world. So Indian people or like Indian students or other kind of students can also apply to that internship. So I think it is good in the sense that if you secure one with the law firm you want to apply to, it can help you in the next application when you actually want to apply for a job there, because you can express your interest with evidence, with your experience, because you actually maybe came across this kind of transaction the firm has been handling during that virtual internship. Maybe you talk to someone from the firm during that virtual internship. So it's not the fact that you join the internship, but the fact that you actually experience the things at that firm and you can articulate that experience in an application form. That will help you stand out. I think that's the key. So the fact that you get an internship may not mean like everything, but the fact that you actually like take the step forward, maybe you're very proactive.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, you connect with so many people from the firm or talk to so many people during the internship, and you leverage that experience to help you get a future job. I think that's the most important part of this virtual internship thing. And other than that, I also think that in India specifically, there are like internship organized by, like not internship, but like vacation scheme organized by like Herbert Smith, Linklater. They have an India-specific internship for you guys, and I think that's an amazing opportunity as well. I remember last month I talked to someone like who is working at Herbert Smith. She's from India. She didn't even study in the UK before. She literally is a fresh graduate from India and secured a trainee solicitor or trainee lawyer position in London. So that was a bit eye-opening for me as well, because even I had to, like study my master's degree here, so that to walk through that journey. So I think those are amazing opportunities for people or for the audience who are listening now. You definitely should check out whether that firm offers like India-specific internship or training contract. And you definitely should apply for that, because it's like an amazing opportunity for you to kind of bypass the traditional application process where you need to face all the UK students or the international students. For that internship, maybe you just need to face Indian students, which I think it will be comparatively easier because the number of people are less, and also you are competing with others with similar experiences, and you know how to stand out among your peers as well. Compared to other UK students, they may have other kinds of experience. So I think those are opportunities you should look for. And definitely using social medias more often, especially LinkedIn, will help you gain access to those information more regularly and connecting with different kinds of people. Even people from India, there must be so many, because I remember even for my platform, Global Lawyers Connect, we interviewed this lawyer at a global law firm in London, and he is trial qualified. She qualified in New York, in India, and also in England and Wales. And in the past, he also worked at an India law firm for a few years. And then he went to, I think, NYU or Columbia to do an LLM. And then he qualified in New York, and then he made the transition and jumped to London to actually worked for global law firms. Right now, he's the head of that global law firms, the India group. So I think there's so many opportunities out there. And sometimes you also need to reach out people, maybe from your country, but they make it in terms of actually getting an international career. You can learn from them, ask for their opinions as well. So I do think that there are lots of opportunities out there nowadays. And yeah, I definitely like the fields I just mentioned, the virtual internship, the India-specific internships, those things you should bear in mind as Indian students who are listening.
Right. Gordon, if somebody wants to crack the New York bar exam, how should they go about it? And first of all, one question is that even if you don't have a master's degree in New York, okay, you can still write it. So under what rules, if you can explain, what is the qualification for that?
Sure. Although I also need to make sure, because the final say is on the New York Authority, but in general, yes, if you have a 3-year law degree in a common law country, then you will usually satisfy that requirement. But if you don't have that degree, because sometimes they also need to evaluate the kind of subject you study for that degree. So I cannot say for sure for all the common law 3-year LLB degree will satisfy that. But in general, you can. It is possible or very likely. But if you can't, you need to study an LLM in the US, so that they have this cure provision. If, say, you do an LLM there, you can cure the insufficiency of your LLB degree, and you will be eligible to take the bar exam as well. That's why when I took the bar exam, actually the majority of foreigners there, they did an LLM there. They may be from mainland China or from other civil law countries, but they end up sitting the exam right after they graduate from the LLM degree. So that is your the criterion you need to look for. If you don't satisfy the initial requirement, you need to do an LLM. But the LLM definitely is not aiming at actually helping you to pass the bar, because the content of the LLM and the content of the bar exam are a little bit different. So you definitely need to study separately. But after your graduation, you usually have 2 months, I think, or almost 3 months to study for the bar exam. I think it will be more than enough, because most law graduate, LLM graduate, they do the bar exam right after they graduate as well. They do the preparation, etc. So I think that's the initial requirement or the eligibility for that.
Okay, so it is said that the New York bar exam, I think, has around 60% pass rate, and a lot of people don't manage to pass, and it is said to be quite hard. So how much did you have to study, or how much time does it take?
Well, honestly, I think it's not actually 60. It's 60, or I would say because when you look at the statistic, probably 60 or 70 is the total population of that bar exam, bar exam takers. But when you look at just foreigners, I think it's more 45 to 50 each year. I think the main reason is that most people who fail the bar exam first time will very likely be people from civil law country. It makes sense because the laws are kind of different. You need to grab all the concepts from scratch. Because for me, for example, I did my law in Hong Kong and UK. Actually, some concepts are pretty similar, I could say, like the New York law or the US law and the common law in UK. So I actually have some ideas on some concepts, although I still need to kind of study all the specific rules from scratch. But I can at least kind of get some concept, and I have some initial familiarity. I think that helps a bit. But I don't think it's an absolute barrier anyway, because for me, I study full-time for 3 to 4 months. I do think that if you have the materials, I actually use 𝗵𝗵 to study for my bar exam. And if you have the right material and you have a very rigid timetable, potentially spending 7 to 8 hours a day, just like a full-time job if you study full-time, I think it makes sense. And 3 months to get a qualification in the US, I think it's worth it, to be honest. And although you may not necessarily pass it first time, but some bar course providers, if you enroll into their course, they also give you, not a guarantee, but allow you to retake using the course material without incurring extra costs. So I think your initial course is just the first time when you enrolled, and later on, it won't be like too onerous financially speaking. So I do think that, yeah, definitely, but you need to consider whether you study full-time or part-time. I think that's the main consideration. Full-time, 3 to 4 months, I think should be enough. Part-time, 8 to 10 months, potentially. And it also depends on your timetable, as I mentioned, because everyone has different style of studying. But definitely in general, I mean, if they want to know more details, they could like definitely reach out to me or read a few articles published on Global Lawyers Connect, because they're like, I actually share some more like specific tips, but here, because it would be like too long for me to actually go into the whole study process. But in general, I would say like full-time 3 to 4 months and part-time 8 to 10 months, and use materials maybe 𝗵𝗵 or other course providers you find.
Understood. Tell us a little more. There are a bunch of questions. We'll start taking questions next. But if you can give us some insights about what has been like, what has been like to move to London, and have you joined your job? Then what has been it like? If you can share some of it.
I would say I actually love London, to be honest, in terms of the living environment. Like not right now because of the situation, but in general, I would say, like London is just a very international city in terms of, because there are literally like so many different kinds of people, even when you walk out on the street, like people from all over the world just coming here. I bet you can get a similar feeling maybe from other international cities as well. But I do think that London has its attractiveness in terms of being a cosmopolitan city. And additionally, I think I haven't started my job yet, because for those who are interested, after you secure a training contract, if you don't have your law degree in the UK, you basically need to do 2 courses. One is called a GDL. It's like a conversion degree to convert your LLB back to a UK LLB. And the other one is called the LPC. It's more like a practical course to study before you start your training contract. Because I actually finished my GDL, and when I'm going to start my LPC, which will last for 7 months. So I will start my training contract with my firm officially next year around March. So I think, but the good thing is, after you secure a training contract, the law firms will pay for the full fees for all the courses, and they will give you a maintenance grant for the duration of the courses, ranging from maybe 6,000 to 10,000 pounds per course, so that you basically don't have a big problem living in London if you rent somewhere like affordable, not like a really 5-star like places. In general, you will be fine, I think, if you are reasonable and you spend your money wisely in general and don't overspend. So I think right now, basically, if you get a training contract, I would say it helps you a lot in terms of like you don't have that much problems with the way you live, or like you don't need to worry about your money that much as well, because the firm will sponsor you. And even the New York bar exam, to be honest, because there is this pro bono requirement, I didn't acquire any back home. My firm actually arranged for a pro bono internship for me to do, just for the sake of satisfying that requirement. So the firm has been really supportive of what I'm doing, even though I didn't actually let them know about the New York bar thing until I passed it, because at that time it wasn't really relevant to my training contract anyway. But like they still like gave lots of support. So I think one good thing is that if you secure training contract as a foreigner from a global law firm, you will definitely get pretty much many support from them, because they have been handling like foreign trainee solicitor for quite a while due to the nature of their business. So they have been very familiar with the way to help those people who are not from the UK originally. So I think this is the good thing. Even regarding the visa situation or anything, they will sort it out. So I think, I'm pretty positive like in terms of my situation now,
So you have worked a lot as paralegal in different companies, right? Different companies and law firms. So if you can throw some light on that, like, is it possible to work as paralegals online? Maybe, I don't know, like given there is lockdown now.
Yeah. Yeah, because actually in London, one interesting thing is if say you're from other country, there are a lot of like document review projects, for example, in London. Like it's like a project basis. It may last from 2 weeks to a month to 3 months. It depends on project. But that is the good thing. So during that period of time when I didn't get my contract, I just kind of participate in different kinds of project across different law firms. I think it's pretty common because there's so many qualified lawyers working on document review projects. And actually, if you're a qualified lawyer, you may get, like financially speaking, get a pretty decent amount of money working as a paralegal as well. So I think that is the good thing about the legal market here, because you don't necessarily need to get work as a trainee solicitor all the time. You can get the document review roles or other paralegal roles on a shorter term. Although right now it's more difficult, maybe because of the situation, the matters or like cases are decreasing. So I think one key thing for you is if you're from outside of the UK, it may be a little bit difficult for you to get a paralegal role here, basically due to the fact that like the visa condition, unless you're a citizen in the UK. Because even now I have like friends working as a paralegal in London, they may not necessarily get that many paralegal roles anymore because of the situation. So I think it does affect the opportunities. But I do think that it will recover pretty soon after the scenario gets better and the situation gets better. So, but I do think that like as a student from other country, you should like first look for those virtual events and virtual internship first. But paralegal roles, it could be a bit more difficult. But I think it will. But I do think that it will get better as soon as the things get back to normal as well.
Right. Okay. Any comments on on your Global Lawyers Connect and what do you do, and and what is the idea?
Yeah, actually, I do want to like have this opportunity to talk about my platform, Global Lawyers Connect. I mean, I'm really grateful for like all the support I got in the past month, like the 2 months actually, because like there are actually a large number of Indian students joining my platform as well. So I do want to like take this opportunity to like definitely encourage other Indian students who are watching to maybe join Global Lawyers. Connect in LinkedIn, because we do like have articles regularly targeting international students wanting to break into other jurisdictions, say Canada, UK, US, even Netherlands, or other parts of Europe, Asia, Pacific region. So we do want to like gain more attention from like the Indian community as well. And there are actually a lot of them already, which are like helping our community to grow. So I do think that I always want to have an international community. Maybe one day I could even meet someone like in India, say, like from the Global Lawyers Connect. That's kind of like the bigger vision I have in terms of how this platform can grow, and the fact that we can even organize maybe country-specific virtual meetup or actual meetup in the future when the situation gets better. So, and also we like what you guys are doing. We are also organizing webinars as well. So, I mean, I'm also happy to collaborate with you guys on future webinars with Global Lawyers Connect. That would be amazing that would be amazing as well. Yeah, so far, I think I'm just grateful for the support I get, and also, being on this webinar itself already to talk about this initiative. I'm really happy about it. Yeah.
Great, awesome. Like this is great work, Gordon. I'm sure we'll see more coming from you.
Thank you.
So, yes, so let's pick up some questions quickly because we have around 12 minutes left.
Sure.
Let's start from the beginning. We have a question from Munira. I intend to pursue a career in the UK, and I'm hoping to gain some insight into the system and the whole idea of a transnational career. So pursue a career in the UK, hoping to get some insight. I think you got some insights at least at the moment, Munira. So if you have any specific question, do tell us. There's a question. There's a question from 𝗵𝗵𝗰𝗁𝗀. She's asking, I want to go for LLM currently in Mumbai University. I want to go for LLM abroad. what are my prospects of studying abroad, and which university should be considered? So yeah, that may be an interesting question, Gordon. I see that you have done your LLM as well, but
Yeah.
you know, when somebody is thinking that, okay, I want to go abroad and I maybe want to work internationally, how do I choose? There are so many countries and so many options that we have. You know, should I do something in Australia, New Zealand, or Canada, or USA? What exactly are my options?
Yeah, that's a good question as well, honestly, because that's probably a problem facing so many international people who want to break into other country or have an international career. For me, the comparison is pretty obvious. Like, firstly, if you want to go to the US, that's a good option in terms of your future prospect. If you can make it, for example, you can get into big law firms in the US. Like, you know that the first year attorney there, they may get paid like $180,000 a year for first year attorney. It is attractive indeed, but you also need to consider the cost. An LLM could be really expensive in the US, probably double or triple the money you pay in the UK potentially, probably double. But I think the fact that like it is, and also like the prospect of actually getting a job in the US after an LLM is actually, I would say, even slimmer compared to the UK, because they have this prestigious JD degree in the US. They would rather prefer hiring someone who do the JD degree and who is American, who know the way Americans do things in general. I think that just makes sense for them to prioritize those candidates, not because you're like not just because you're a foreigner, but because of the fact that you couldn't prove to them that you're a better candidate compared to those JD graduates. I think that's the key problem. But of course, if you have extensive work experiences before, or you work in a global law firm in another country, that may help a bit. But in general, it's more difficult. So that's the reason why I applied maybe more like the UK master's degree as well. Firstly, it's a bit cheaper, although it's still expensive in general. But yeah, like it is a bit cheaper. And also, like, I would say the prospect of getting a job here is relatively easier compared to the US, but it is still very difficult, but just comparatively easier. Because law firms here, for example, they organize a lot of like open days or law fairs at your university. Ideally, if you study at a high ranked university, because I do think that if you're going to do a master's degree, you better do it at a higher ranked university, not just because, you know, of the reputation, but just it makes sense for you, because the purpose of you doing the master's degree as a foreigner, part of it could be that you want to increase your employability. So it makes sense for you to go for university that are higher ranked. I would say in UK, more well-recognized ones, it's not an exhaustive list, but from my point of view, maybe LSE, definitely London School of Economics, and Oxbridge and KCL, UCL, even Queen Mary, you know, Queen Mary. There's just a lot of good universities in London specifically, and even you know, to Scotland, like the Edinburgh, Glasgow, like all those universities are amazing. I think your consideration as a foreigner to apply for university, definitely you need to work on your CV first. I do know that people from India got into Cambridge and Oxford. Like when I was in Cambridge, I saw a lot of Indians law students as well. But I think the key is you need to work on your craft to stand out from the Indian community and also from the international community. For me, for example, my GPA or my grades weren't the best, to be honest, when I applied to Cambridge. But I actually published articles in peer-reviewed journals, which actually helped a lot, I think. Because as a student, I published it in a law journal in Europe, Germany. I think it's just abnormal. It's not that common, I would say. It's not like, but I don't think it's because I'm good at doing it, or it's not like I'm talented or anything. I think it's just I work hard on it, and I saw this possibility of doing something different from other competitors or other candidates that helped me stand out in my application. So I think you can definitely think of new ideas, even launching a podcast, I don't know, like writing law blogs, articles for other platforms. I think all those things could add up to be a good weapon for you when you apply for jobs or master's degree.
Somebody has asked a question on which areas of law are common to all countries. So I want to quickly add myself also something to this. We discussed some of the international specific things like shipping law. I mean, it's then you have international, aviation. You have international commercial arbitration, which is a big area. International trade law. But apart from the international laws, there is also certain things which are just very similar skills everywhere. For example, contract drafting, no matter where you go, as long as you know the language, it's probably not that different. There may be 20% extra you have to learn about that country's specific laws and maybe stamp duty and everything. That some of the things will be different, but in the end of the day, you are drafting the same clauses. That's one thing. Another thing is definitely investment law, merger and acquisitions. These are pretty much same no matter where you go. The laws, whatever the laws may be, but at the end of the day, there will be the practice. It will be like same due diligence, compliance. Compliances can be different, but due diligence, deal structuring, shareholder agreement, loan agreements, it's not all that different. It's like the basic elements just remains the same. And of course, there are some local laws that you have to learn. But I think there are a lot of things like this where, if you're working on, let's say, aircraft lease agreements, it's not going to change in India to Bangladesh, to London, to Germany, everywhere it will be the same. And there are things like this which, that you can work on. There are a lot of international finance transactions. So if you work on international finance transactions, you could be working more or less anywhere because you are doing the same deals, same contracts. The other thing that really helps you to go international is that when you start working on international things, then people want more lawyers like that who have international exposure because they have other similar deals. If they, in fact, when law firms pitch for work from potential clients, they will say, you know what, we have, say, Gordon with us and he has experience of doing XYZ deals and he's himself from Hong Kong and he has expertise around India work and China work, and it depends, right? So it helps to be able to say that I have worked on so many different things. So I think these are some of the important things from the perspective of, when you are talking about what areas of law are common to all countries. I think this is what you are looking at. Gordon, you want to add something?
Yeah, probably I pretty much agree with like the things you said, like about merger acquisition, like those finance related area. Maybe one thing is also worth mentioning is international arbitration, especially in London, is so big because when you look at international commercial contracts, and in the past there were studies saying that like 40% of contracts use English law as the governing jurisdiction. You can see like international arbitration is big, especially in London, due to like English law is probably the primary source for those contracts. So I do think that if you're interested in those areas, maybe making that jump and moving to another country, it will be like, it makes sense for you to gain that experience.
Ms. Baida is asking how to demonstrate commercial awareness in interviews.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a difficult part because I remember at first when I heard about it, it was a bit an alien concept to me as well, because back home we didn't need to know what commercial awareness, like in terms of we don't need to say it out loud, like this is the concept you need to know, because in UK they actually emphasize that a lot. Like they tell people you need to know commercial awareness, etc. I think there are two parts of that. First part is definitely you're aware of the news, the commercial situations around the world happening. Not only knowing that, but knowing that how it affects a firm's profitability, their client, so that you need to kind of relate it back to those firms. For example, right now, just a very simple example, coronavirus, pandemic, most areas of law are gonna get hit so hardly, like due to the situation. But for example, my employment laws is pretty much growing as well because so many employment disputes have been, arising because of the scenario. So you kind of need to know like this kind of things in terms of how it affects a firm's profitability or their practice area strength. Another thing is you need to know about law firm itself as a business organization or as a partnership, because they are here to make profits. So the way they market their firm, the way they operate their firm, the way they actually establish an office makes a big difference. Like, for example, in the past, I made videos about how different law firms in London use different international strategies to make profits. For example, some firms, they work on deal by having so many overseas offices so that whenever they get a deal, they have all those offices coordinate together and to give clients a solution under the same roof, under the same firm, like in different offices. But some firms, like, for example, like a magic circle firm, say Slaughter and May in London, they only have maybe 2 or 3 offices all over the world. How can they work on international transaction? You may wonder. But you can know that like law firms like that, they usually have like the best firms networks. Like they have a few very leading law firms in that jurisdiction to cooperate with. So whenever a client comes or whenever a transaction is here, they work with those leading law firms. Their rationale is that they think their overseas office of in another country may not necessarily be the best firm in that area. They would rather cooperate with those best law firms to provide their client with the best legal team, so that they will benefit from it. So that you can see like different law firms have different strategy or consideration. The fact that you actually realize those things can help you a lot in terms of the way you understand the firm operate and even the way you write your application form, taking into account the different kinds of approach they're using. So I would say commercial awareness is definitely, firstly, how the things in the society happening affect the firm's profitability, the clients, or their affair. Secondly, how the firms operate as a business.
Understood. So many people are asking questions about Global Lawyers Connect. Can you share a link where they can,
Oh yeah. Well, actually, the easiest thing is just www.globallawyersconnect.com. You can literally go to their website, and this is probably the easiest I can say right now. But definitely on LinkedIn, if you search Global Lawyers Connect, you can definitely find a page and you can gain access to our Facebook group where there are lots of people sharing resources there. Or you just simply follow our page on LinkedIn and we will advertise all the webinars we're going to organize. And also we're going to publish articles on different jurisdictions from time to time. So just keep an eye on our LinkedIn page. I think I would say for now, just the LinkedIn page and our website, www.globallawyersconnect.com. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think we have reached towards the end of our session. Maybe we'll take one more question.
Yeah.
There are many questions. Trying to figure out which one to take. Does it help if you take QLTS to work in UK? If you haven't done LLM or anything, but does it help if you do QLTS on your own and then try to work with somebody in UK?
Yeah. Actually, I mean, QLTS is more for foreign lawyers wanting to qualify in the UK. I think it's more relevant. For example, I have some classmates back in Cambridge. They are already qualified lawyers. And they didn't actually apply for a training contract. They applied for foreign lawyer position in a global law firm. So in that case, they actually got to work in that law firm, and the firm will sponsor them to take the QLTS actually, I think. And they even have a study break in between the work to take the QLTS so that they could be a qualified UK, England and Wales lawyers as well. So I think QLTS is more for people who already qualify back to your country. Maybe there's some Indian lawyers here, they want to cross-qualify in England and Wales. That may be an option rather than to apply for a training contract. And also, that's just a separate note. Actually, Global Lawyers Connect is also going to organize a webinar with Barbary on QLTS next Tuesday. So just keep an eye on our page again. And yeah, that seminar will probably answer this question well.
Okay. Great. That's fantastic. So I think that's great, very useful. Thank you so much, Gordon, for joining us and sharing
No worries.
so much information with us. hope to collaborate and work with you in the future again. Take
Yeah,
care.
sure. Yeah, I'm more than happy to collaborate in the future on webinars or any kinds of like projects. But thank you so much for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Have a great day, Gordon. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, you too.